Welcome to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast.
If I tell you what I think you're using your cognitive brain, I'm actually pacifying your brain. You don't have to think other than, oh, that's a good idea or that's stupid. Oftentimes that light bulb moment can come with just someone asking them, what do you mean by that? That creates an aha, an insight. I have found even far more power in the reflection than the question. To remember why we're there, I always say, I'm not there to make people feel better. We're there to help people see better.
That's Dr. Marcia Reynolds. She's served as the global president of the International Coaching Federation and has been recognized as one of the top 5 coaches in the world. She's taught many clients how to hold powerful conversations that activate change, which she shares in her latest book, Breakthrough Coaching, Creating Light Bulb Moments in Your Coaching Conversations. So you'll learn 1, why coaching is simpler than you think, 2, how to shift into the ideal state of mind, and 3, your most powerful coaching tool. I'm Pete Mikaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Marcia. Marcia, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to dig into your wisdom, and we're talking about creating light bulb moments within coaching conversations. Could you kick us off by sharing a couple of your most memorable light bulb moments in such conversations?
You know, it's amazing to me how people always want to make coaching so complex that oftentimes that light bulb moment can come with just some of the initial questions. I've been spending a lot more time when people start to talk about their issues, what they're frustrated about, just the key words that really stand out, asking them, what do you mean by that? When you say you're really disappointed, tell me more about what are you disappointed about? That just asking them to explain what they just spouted off. Often just when they start to think about, well, I did say that. What did I mean? That creates an aha, an insight. So just even that, or what are the things that led you to believe that? Asking that question. Or if somebody were to argue with you, what might they say? Sometimes it's just those initial questions that kind of open people's eyes and their minds. And so finding even how I get into the conversation is just as important as what comes after.
That's beautiful. Well, can you share with us how such a conversation unfolded and the light bulb moment that emerged?
I was actually coaching this woman on how she shows up in her leadership meetings. And she says, I just want to be more confident. And I said, so tell me what confidence means to you. What does it look like? And it's such a throwaway term. And she was like, oh, well, I guess what I really want is to be able to disagree with someone and to be comfortable with that. Well, see, that's a little different than just feeling good about myself, building my self-esteem. So starting to move down that path. So tell me more about these times where you feel that your disagreement could be useful, but you've hesitated. And it was just amazing when she started to lay out those moments and what she could have contributed, that really led to easily like, so what do you think got in the way? Let's look at resolving that. But it was defining what she really wanted to do specifically instead of this vague term confidence was so important to her to knowing what she really wanted to create for herself. So I often even really push, you've got to both have a very significant picture of what the person wants to create instead of what they have now. It can't be a vague term. It can't be, I need to make a decision, or it can't even be an emotion. I want to be happier. It's got to be a picture you and I can both see. And working to even just create that picture is so powerful for people to recognize this in their own head that it makes the rest of the coaching easier. And you can do this in any conversation. Doesn't have to be coach to client, but a leader, a parent, that just asking those questions, what do you mean by that? Can you expound on that a little bit? What would it look like if it were different for you? That alone makes such a difference for people. not just their own understanding, but they feel like, oh, you care enough about me that you want to help me walk through this. And it's very engaging.
Well, I was going to ask just that in terms of what do you suppose is the magic at work here, Marcia? Why do we suppose this works the way it does? And it sounds like there's one skeleton key right there is folks really feel heard, appreciated, listened to, validated, cared about. And that's powerful in our humanity.
Right. So I'm going to step into the conversation with you. I'm going to be willing. I feel safe to share, what my fears are, what my doubts are. And that's a big thing. The other part of it on the science side of it is that I'm using a different part of the brain when I ask you these questions instead of telling you what I think. If I tell you what I think, you're using your cognitive brain. I'm actually pacifying your brain. You don't have to think other than, oh, that's a good idea or that's stupid. But when I start to ask you these questions, you start to use the middle brain, which is the creative part of your brain. And you start having to really think things through and it makes new connections. And that's how we have a light bulb moment, is that we see something we had not seen before, and that actually creates new connections it's sustainable. You don't go back to what you were doing and how you were seeing things, which when I tell you what to do, if it feels kind of awkward, you're going to say, well, that was dumb. I'm not going to do that anymore. But when you come up with it on your own and you change your perspective, you're likely to commit with more confidence to making a change.
Certainly. As opposed to just passively judging, that's cool, that's dumb.
Exactly, which is what we tend to do, right?
So I'd love to, if we could zoom into the context of professionals talking to other professionals, as opposed to a full-blown executive coach working with a coaching client. I'm wondering how the context shifts and what things we should keep in mind when we are working with one of our direct reports or even just a peer and colleague.
Well, like I said, this can work in any conversation, but the main thing is that you're very clear on your intent. If I go into the conversation with my intent is that I'm going to make you do something, then your questions are going to come out like judgmental or condescending, and they won't engage. So I can ask, okay, so you use the word confidence. Explain to me a little bit more what confidence in this context means to you. That's different than, what do you mean by confidence? So your intention will often shape the conversation. So when I teach leaders a coaching approach, because I don't make them into coaches, I can't do that in a short workshop, but I say you start with intent. Are you there to really help them achieve something they want? Not just what you want, but you've got to know what they want. So if you don't know, start there. What would be important enough for you to make a change? Do they want to be a leader? Do they want to have better relationships on their team? Do they want less stress? What's important to them? Because you need to tie the conversation into something they want, the what's in it for me. And they need to know that you care enough about what they want. So it starts there. And that no matter where you are with them, you might be disappointed, you might be angry. You have to also manage and actually set the emotional tone. Whether you're a leader or a colleague, you go into the conversation with, I care about this relationship. And, I want to really have a good ending. If you go in disappointed, angry, then that, again, your emotions is going to impact the result of the conversation even more than the words you choose. So you have to choose your emotional state, know what the intention is, and always respect the person you're with, the human you're with. They're on a journey, and whatever they did, most people are trying to do the best they can with what they know. And they'll get better. They may not have the experience you have, but just telling them what they should do, that doesn't help either. So having a conversation where we can explore their thinking and then even asking that question, if someone were to argue with you, what might they say? Are there some things in their argument you might want to consider? It's better than saying, well, there's some things you should think about. You didn't think about this, this, and this. But to ask the questions instead will help them to sort through their thinking and to see other possibilities. So it's intention, emotional, state and respect. That's really critical to all these conversations.
Now, I'm curious, when you say choose your emotional state, I mean, that sounds like a prudent thing to do, but in practice, I think my experience is that it can be a little bit tricky to just select from the menu of emotional states and say, yes, this is the one I'd like. I'm currently feeling tired and crabby and irritable, but what I would like to feel is compassionate and loving and curious. Ah, yes, the punch in those buttons and I'm now experiencing that emotional state. It usually doesn't quite work out that way for me, even if I make my power moves and do all the things Tony Robbins told me to do. How do you recommend?
Well, it can't be a cognitive process. And that's what you're saying. Okay, I'm going to choose then. I want to be this. So like you're driving in your car and the traffic is awful and you're tense and it's crazy. And you say to yourself, I should feel patient. I should feel patient. It lasts for about how long? So you have to do something that's going to help you to actually embody patience. So maybe turn on some music. What I used to do when I used to make this long drive is I would, the traffic was so jammed up that I would just look in the sky and look for hawks because there was always a lot of hawks in the area. And I wouldn't see them if I didn't look for them. So by looking for the hawks and remembering I'm in this beautiful place and turning on some music, I can start to feel a different state. So you have to feel it in order to shift. So do you know what compassion feels like? What would it take? What do you have to feel about this person in order to feel compassion? And if you go into a conversation and you're just so kind of disappointed with them that you can't, then at least say that I really want to be here in this conversation and I'm disappointed because you've promised this 3 times and haven't done it. So I'm having a little hard time getting over that. So explain it. Don't fake it and then see what happens. But that's what emotional intelligence is. The word intelligence, the root of the word is choice between. That I have choice if I want to. If I don't want to, I want to stay angry with you, then I'm going to stay angry, but at least choose anger. You do have the power to choose, but you have to feel it. It's a biological state, not just a cognitive state.
And when it comes to these light bulb moments, I think these are fantastic principles and controlling within our control in terms of choosing the emotional state, the intention and such. At the same time, I wonder, it seems like a good part of it is really not up to us, even if we show up at our maximum. And light bulb moments, it almost feels like something special. That's what's so intriguing about your book is like, oh, light bulb moments, huh? Can those just be engineered? Can we just push the button, make that happen? That seems impossible. So tell us, what are the conditions in terms of the environment or the person that we're engaging with that also need to be present or boost the probability of us having some of these light bulb moments?
So first I want to say that when I coach people and their result is going to be based on somebody else, like, okay, I'm going to go have a conversation with so-and-so, I always then ask the question, well, if it doesn't turn out like you wanted to, what will you then do? Because we're not in full control of where they're willing to go. So to know that. But even then, if I sense resistance, then I'm going to say, when you said that you were going to make this change, you didn't seem to have commitment in your words. So what's the hesitation? And so I will ask about it. So what a lot of people don't understand about coaching is that it's not just asking questions. A lot of it is just reflecting. And I have found even far more power in the reflection than the question. So if I said, like with the confidence example, you use the term confidence, tell me more about that. I would have to use that. I wouldn't just say, tell me more about what you just said. I would use the word she said, or with the hesitation, you seem to be hesitating. It's like you said it, but you sighed before you said it. That doesn't seem like a real commitment. So I would share what I noticed and ask the question. So it's that sharing back of what I hear, what I notice, what I witness, that they then take in their whole experience and then speak to it. And that then helps them to see beyond that. And maybe they'll say, yeah, I don't really want to do this. And that happened to me once. I said, okay, so we've had this whole conversation, but you don't really want to make a change. Well, no, not really. I said, okay, so can we back up a little bit and take a look at what is it you really want out of this situation? So I think that really getting good at recognizing what needs to be shared back, and that's all a part of being really present, to hear what are the key things or what did you just notice that was significant and share that back. That's really what being a thinking partner is. And that's what we are when we're doing even a coaching approach to the conversation. And that's what creates those creative insights, which is a light bulb moment is really just a creative insight that I have. And then I help you articulate that because it doesn't mean anything if you just go, oh, okay, great, I get it now. It's like, well, what did you get? Would you be willing to share that? They must articulate the insight before they can act on it.
And you mentioned staying present. I think that distractions are omnipresent in our world, externally and internally. Do you have some best practices or favorite approaches you use when you find yourself drifting to get right back in the groove?
Well, Pete, there's two things. Drifting before the conversation and drifting in the conversation are two different things. So before the conversation, you can do some mental preparation. What is my intention? What is it I'm feeling? Can I make this shift? Or if I can't, how will I address it? Do I respect this person? You can mentally prepare. During the conversation, that's just a discipline of starting to notice. Is something out my window distracting me? Which I had to move, actually, my computer because I was getting like all kinds of wildlife out my window. It was very distracting. So I have to create the space where I'll have less external distractions that will pull me away. But if I'm listening to share back with you what I'm hearing, what I notice, the reflection, then I have to stay present to that. Yeah. Otherwise, I'll miss it. And I can see it when I mentor coaches and I'm watching this and I see the key moment that they miss. I can tell that they got stuck on something that was said before. And they're just waiting to ask this question. It's like, I'll wait till this person shuts up so I can ask this question. That's a distraction because then maybe what they said after you noticed that was even more important. So can I stay with this person to really hear what's going on with them so I can pick up the key elements that I want to share back? That requires me to stay present in this moment. And it is a practice. It's more important to practice that being present in the conversation than even what I'm going to say.
And I guess just as a practical note, if someone said something you really want to follow up on, should you just write it down so that it's there for you later?
You know what? I may write down one word. I don't want to write a whole bunch because then they're looking at the top of your head. But I might write down just one word because especially if I've got a verbal processor that's like all over the place. Even just an hour ago, I had a client and she tends to do that to me. She's like, well, I want to talk about this. And then she'll drift off down this path, down this path, down this path. And so I will even say, so you've kind of gone down some different paths. Do you want to go back to the original path or is there something now that's coming up for you that's more important? So I will indicate to them that there was something that seemed to be important that you first said, but now you've gone off some other places and I invite them to choose. So what do you want to focus on now? And pull them back down. And most of the verbal processors that I work with appreciate it because they know they are all over the place. And they're always like, thank you for making me just drill down to what it is I really want. So.
Okay. Well, Marcia, tell me anything else you really want to make sure to mention before we hear about some of your favorite things.
This comes back to what you were saying, that how important it is that people feel engaged. To remember why we're there, I always say, I'm not there to make people feel better. We often think our conversations have to be rah, rah, you're so great, blah, blah. We're there to help people see better. And even if it's a little painful for me to see some reality I had not seen before, I appreciate that you took the time to help me with that so I can move forward. So don't ever think people can't handle it, because that's truly what they see of value is you help me to see things in a way I couldn't, that helped me learn and grow. So I always say that you aren't there to help them feel better. You're there to help them see better. And I think that's a significant role that we can play for other people in our lives.
Marcia's about to share her favorite things. And one of my favorite things is our sponsors today, LinkedIn Jobs and BetterHelp. Did you know that you can post a job for free at linkedin.com/beawesome? Well, you can. So you got that going for you. And with a fresh year, perhaps you're like many small business owners looking for some fresh insight and talent to make 2024 extra amazing. Well, LinkedIn Jobs has created tremendous tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and free. I love how they make it so easy with their promotion and selection tools. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. No, no, no. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Here's some fun facts. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. And small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/beawesome. That's linkedin.com/BEAWESOME, as in you are being awesome, be awesome, to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. If you've already failed on your New Year's resolution this year, it's totally cool. BetterHelp proposes a reframed question. Where are you already crushing it? And might therapy help you find your strengths so that you can ditch extreme resolutions and instead, rather, gradually expand on what's already working to make these positive changes really stick for the long haul? BetterHelp provides affordable online therapy, and therapy has helped me get clear on my priorities, streamline commitments, set healthy boundaries, and liberate real good stuff. Now, if you're thinking about giving therapy a try, check out BetterHelp. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, affordable, and fit in with your schedule. You can just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge if you're just not feeling the first person you got matched up with. That's totally cool. Celebrate the progress you've already made with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/awesome today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/awesome. Well, lovely. Thank you. And now could you share with us a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
I have a quote on my wall that just says, it doesn't really matter that which I'm afraid if I'm acting in the service of my vision.
All right. And a favorite study or experiment or bit of research?
So there was a study done last year where it was just 16 people, but that's how studies start. They start with a sample and they talk to these people to find out something that was important for them to work on, as we would in coaching. So each one had their own personal dilemma, issue, decision that they wanted to work on. So they then, each person, first off, they gave them a really nice room, a comfortable room, quiet, no distractions, to where they can start thinking this through. Now, all of them had on brain monitors. So they were monitoring brain activity. And then afterwards, they talked to them about, so what did you discover? What were your insights? So they put them in the room and they did this. And then they took them out and gave them a mentor, somebody who would share their experiences, their suggestions, their ideas. Again, monitored the brain. And in both situations, it was actually similar brain movement, not spiky. It had some movement. They came up with some ideas. But then the third scenario, they had them sit down with a coach that used reflective inquiry, what I was talking about. The brain monitors went off the charts. They were like, blah, 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 all over the place. So when I said to you, it pacifies people's brains when you tell them what to do. But even self-analyzing, we don't do this well on our own. And so the third with the activity, and then afterwards, they came up with all these different things that they hadn't thought about before. And so it just demonstrated for the 16 different people with 16 different issues had similar responses on their brain monitoring, that it was the coaching that had such a huge response on their brain. Now, of course, they need to expand this out with other people, other scenarios, cultural differences. But to me, that was just like, well, there it is. There's the charts. I love that research.
That is good. And I'm curious, either from your own experience or from the study, are there any particular prompts or patterns that you can just tell, wow, when you prompt somebody with this, those wheels get turning? Anything leap into mind there?
Yeah, just asking someone, so how do you know that to be true?
All right, that's awesome.
I mean, sometimes as simple as that, but always after reflection. So you told me that you think everybody's out to get you. You don't have any allies in this company. How do you know that to be true? I'm just looking, for the evidence. And you know what's so interesting, Pete? There's so many times I've had leaders start by saying, well, the team is resistant and they don't want to make changes. And I'll say the entire team. Well, no, not the entire team. It's just a handful of people. Okay, so you're telling me that there's a handful of people that are really resistant to this. Well, it's actually just this one person that's kind of really stirring, rocking the boat. And it's so interesting that, again, so, I'm just looking at, so this is what you're telling me. Is that true? This is what you're telling me. Is that true? And how that brings forth, again, their thinking that they really narrow down their general statements to specific. That makes the difference.
And could you share a favorite book?
I've been a follower of Robert Sapolsky for years, and he has a new book out on free will. And it comes back to, what you were saying earlier, can we really change in that moment? Yeah. And a lot of the neuroscientists say we don't have a lot of free will. And the more you are flooding with an emotion, the more difficult it is to actually choose. Your brain chooses for you.
All right. And could you share a favorite tool? Something you use that helps you be awesome at your job?
Well, actually, I've been using for email a thing called SaneBox.
Oh, yeah.
You know SaneBox?
I do.
I absolutely love it because it sorts all my mail into, what I should be reading right now, what maybe I might want to read, what I can totally throw away. And it does that quickly. And I just need to do that. We're so inundated with email. So that's my favorite.
Okay. And now it's time for a Marcia quote, something you share that folks quote back to you again and again.
They really want you to be present more than they need you to be perfect.
Okay. And Marcia, folks want to reach out to you or learn more about your book, Breakthrough Coaching, Creating Lightbulb Moments in Your Coaching Conversations. Where would you point them?
To my website. It's covisioning, one word, covisioning.com. There's a book page that has all the books, but also there's a link. If you do purchase the book, you can get a whole ebook of tools and tips and exercises. So there's a link on the book page on my website.
All right. And do you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
Work on letting go so you can receive, not just listen, but fully receive what people are saying and what they're expressing. If we can do that, it makes them feel you're there with them as well as you actually hear them. All
right. Marcia, thank you. This has been a treat. I wish you many light bulb moments.
Thank you. Thank you, Pete.
I love Marcia's perspective that to have an effective coaching conversation, you don't have to have a fancy credential, certification, many workshops of training under your belt. But really, if you could just set a good intention, listen, and reflect back what you're hearing, that is often enough. I have witnessed this numerous times for folks to go, whoa, yeah, you're right. Just have those breakthrough conversations, those light bulb moments with just those core components. Set that intention, you listen intently, ask some questions, reflect back. Hey, it seemed like your energy kind of really dipped when I asked about this. Like, you know what? You're right. It's amazing. So coaching doesn't have to be this lofty, out of reach experience for us, but rather those core components, which anyone could do, can be really meaningful and transformational for folks. Great stuff for Marcia. If you want the summary of this conversation emailed to you and access to all such summaries, those are called the Gold Nuggets, available at awesomeatyourjob.com. And if you want the particular show notes for this episode, you can go right to awesomeatyourjob.com/EP932. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.
Thanks for listening. To get the most out of the show, we recommend 2 key things. First, check out the extra resources at awesomeatyourjob.com. You can find this episode's transcript and links, as well as the perfect episode for your situation. You can search the full text transcripts of hundreds of episodes or explore episodes tagged by topic and competency covered. Second, subscribe to the podcast and get future episodes automatically. You can subscribe by telling Siri and several other smartphones and speakers, subscribe to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast, or by tapping subscribe in your podcast player of choice. If you'd like some extra help figuring out podcasts and how subscriptions work, visit awesomeatyourjob.com/subscribe for guidance. Hope to catch you on the next episode of How to Be Awesome at Your Job.